Okay, this lesson is about different properties of numbers. So, the commutative property is changing the order. So, in symbols, you can change the order and addition because A plus B is the same thing as B plus A. It doesn't matter what order that you add numbers in, you're going to get the same answer. So, for example, you could add 5 plus 3, and that's still going to be equal to 3 plus 5. That's called the commutative property when you change the order. So this works for addition and multiplication. So A times B is the same thing as B times A. So when you multiply two numbers, you can change the order. Just like 3 times 5 is the same thing as 5 times 3. The associative property is changing the grouping or changing the parentheses. In addition, the associative property looks like this. You could add A plus B first and then add C, but it's the same thing as if you added B plus C first and then added A. The grouping doesn't matter. So for example, you could have 5 plus 3, add those two together first and add 2. Or you could add 3 plus 2 and then add 5. Either way, you're still going to get 10, so it doesn't matter where you put parentheses. The same thing is true with multiplication. You could multiply A times B first and then C, or you could multiply B times C first and then multiply it by A. So 5 times 3 times 2 is the same thing as multiplying 3 times 2 first and then 5. So these properties are true for addition and multiplication, both of them. But it's not true for subtraction. For example, 5 minus 3 is not the same thing as 3 minus 5. Or 5 divided by 3 is not the same thing as 3 divided by 5. So commutative property doesn't work. Associative property, you couldn't do 5 minus 3 first and then subtract 2. That's not the same thing as 5 minus 3 minus 2. They're not equal. Same goes with the division. And the last property is the identity property. So the identity is what do you add or multiply to get the original number. So in addition, the identity is 0. In multiplication, the identity is 1. In addition, it's 0 because if you add 0 to any number, you get the original number. So with numbers, this looks like this. 0 plus 6 equals 6. In multiplication, the identity is 1 because you can multiply 1 times a number and get itself. Just like 5 times 1 is 5. Here are the examples of identity. So the sum, which means if you add any number and 0, is the original number. The product, which means multiply, of any number and 1 is the original number. Okay, let's try these. Let's name the properties shown. So we have commutative, which means that you switch the order. We'll call that C. We have associative, which means you change the grouping, you change the parentheses. And then we have identity, which you're either adding 0 or you're multiplying by 1. So the first one, what is different between the left and the right-hand side? Well, it looks like I'm changing the order. They're changing the order, so it's commutative property. Commutative property of addition. I'll write in symbols like this. Commutative property of addition. The letter B Look at the left side, look at the right side. What is different about it? I'm changing where I have these parentheses. So I'm changing the grouping. So this is called the associative property. And since there's addition, I'm adding. So it's associative property of addition. And letter C. I'm adding 0 to get the original number. So this is called identity. And it's addition. D. Well, how is the left-hand side different than the right-hand side? Well, it looks like I'm changing the grouping. So it's associative, and then I'm using multiplication symbols. So it's associative property of multiplication. E. How is the left-hand side different than the right-hand side? Looks like I'm changing the order again. So when you change the order, it's called the commutative property. And then I have plus signs, so it's addition. And then this one, I'm multiplying by 1. Ooh, this should actually say 4. 4 times 1 is 4. So this is going to be the identity property of addition, or of multiplication, because I'm multiplying. Okay, now let's check some more. What am I doing with 3 plus 9 and 9 plus 3? I'm changing the order. So when I change the order, it's the commutative property of addition. 8 equals 1 times 8. I'm multiplying by 1, so it's the identity property of multiplication. And C is I'm changing the parentheses. So that's the associative property of multiplication. Okay, so I'm going to write down examples of each one. So commutative is order. You're switching up the order. Associative is you're switching where the parentheses go. Identity addition, you're adding 0. Identity multiplication, you're multiplying by 1. So commutative addition looks like this. 5 plus 4 equals 4 plus 5. Commutative multiplication would be 5 times 4 equals 4 times 5. Associative addition is change the parentheses. So 5 plus 4 plus 3. I'm going to write 5 plus 4 plus 3 in the same order, but I'm going to change the parentheses. So it's 5 plus 4 plus 3. Multiplication is the same thing. 5 times 4 times 3, but now I'm going to change the parentheses. 5 times 4 times 3. Identity addition is you're adding 0, and identity multiplication is you're multiplying by 1. These are the 6 properties so far to study.